Josh, how are you this morning?
Good, man. How you doing?
Good. So first off, right off the bat, one of my favorite actors is Jason Patric. I grew up loving his movies. He just seems like this great method actor, and he's had such a great resume. You have a great resume as well, but you're much younger. What kind of lessons did you take from him? Especially, it's a generic question, but you're literally in close quarters with him for this role.
Yeah. The biggest thing from watching Jason was just that he was never afraid to change things like on the fly and make a lot of suggestions and try to just really grind out the scene to try and figure out what works and what's best for the film. And just that level of willingness to grind it out was something that really stood out for me. And just not being afraid to speak up and change things. And like you said, it's, close quarters. It's just us in the back of this truck for hours. And so it was, as an actor, it's really interesting because you don't really have anything else to go off of, you're pretty much just going off of each other. And so it was really just like, acting at its most basic form.
There's a part in the story where your character says, "What's going on? It's really hot in here." And I'm thinking, it must be really hot in there. Was it really hot? Is that movie magic? And how physically grueling overall that production was for you?
Oh, it was hot everywhere. There's a lot of sweat in this movie, and most of it is real because especially the driving scenes in the armored truck. There's no AC in that thing, and we shot in the South in September, and we're in the uniforms which are not made for comfort or breathability, so that adds to it. And yeah, we're just sweating our asses off. And it was hot, but it's good. It's supposed to be kind of a suffocating, claustrophobic movie a little bit, so it works out.
In prepping for this interview, by the way, I really love a lot of your films, and I'm going to get to some of your resume towards the end of the interview. But you mentioned in a podcast that you don't specifically live in Hollywood, when you have a life outside of cinema, and this is your career, but then you have a separate life. Has that been able to ground you as far as how you view the business, and how differently do you view your craft as opposed to when you were a child? Now that you're an adult, is it still the same, that kind of passion and being kind of with a family in a grounded area as well? That must help.
It's a really good question. Yeah, I think my separation from Hollywood, quote unquote, whatever that means these days, is intentional. I still have all the same friends I grew up with, and I kind of like having that separation in my life. And I never, I don't know. I think of myself as an actor, but I also think of myself as, acting is something I do. And I don't know. It's weird. And I think being away from Hollywood is a part of that. But I do, I love it. And there's nothing else I'd want to be doing than, being a part of telling stories. But yeah, from when I started, how it's changed, I'm obviously much more comfortable. And I can kind of, in terms of the world of acting, like doing stuff like this, I think I view it much differently. I'm significantly more comfortable, and I can kind of just get into it and do it and not have to think about it too much. Whereas like at first you're in this festival circuit and it feels really crazy, but now it just feels normal, I guess.
Josh, what's really interesting about your career is someone can go through your resume, and I think this is very rare. You have a very varied selection of films that you've been part of. Was that by design? And on that B level, what kind of advice have you received? Like the most important piece of advice that has actually carried you through just picking these really interesting and diverse projects?
Yeah, I think I'm definitely very deliberate with the movies that I do, for sure. And I've always wanted to do all different kinds of stuff. I've done a lot of drama, obviously. I've always wanted to do comedies, and I wanted to do voiceovers for animations. Like I want to try everything. I've never felt like I wanted to chase a specific genre or vibe. And what was the second part of the question again?
And just a piece of advice that is sort of you've carried, maybe now that you're mature and you've had such a varied career, and then you're over a decade into the business.
Oh God, don't tell me that. It's so scary. Yeah, I don't know. I've always picked bits and pieces from everybody that I've worked with, little pieces of advice. But one thing that I heard somebody say, and it was when I was shooting Max, which was my third movie, and it was the biggest thing I'd done at that point. And someone on the crew at the wrap party he was talking to me and he was like, look, we're not curing cancer. And that's one thing that really stuck out to me. And it's kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier about how I've kind of just been able to take a lot of this side of the industry in stride and not take it too seriously, not in like a disrespectful way, but just in a way that's like I can allow myself to be relaxed and calm and just kind of take it as it comes. So yeah, that's one of the biggest things that's stuck with me for sure.
Josh, my final question is a two-parter. First one, right off the top, can you name one of your all-time favorite movies? And what is it about this specific film that you go back to and resonates with you today, even today?
I have favorite movies, but the first movie I always say when people ask me what's your top five is always Shawshank Redemption. So I guess that's my number one. But
just because of the story, the theme maybe of forgiveness and redemption.
It has this. I think Frank Darabont is just everything he does is so good. But it has this like nostalgia to it and this feeling of like longing for in a situation that's pretty horrible. He's being, spoilers, but framed for murdering his wife. And he didn't do it. He's in this horrible situation, but something just feels like an old whimsical, like folk tale. And you're just rooting for this guy. And then the connection of, that whole theme of hope in a hopeless place and finding connection in relationships. And then the whole Brooks thing. It is so sad, but I love that movie.
Great. And the final part of that question is just from your own resume, can you name a project that you were involved in that you felt might be a little bit underrated and that you really love and you would love our listeners and watchers to check out? What makes it special for you?
I love these questions. I would say The Bachelors. It's a movie I did with J.K. Simmons and Odeya Rush. And I really, really like that movie. It's about, this father and son, kind of a similar thing where father and son, there's been a death in the family and there's a big wedge in between them and they just kind of have to figure it out. There's no explosions or guns or anything, but it's a very good character piece that I would definitely recommend people check out.
I'm sure you'd also recommend Mean Dreams because I just recently interviewed Sophie Nélisse and I asked her from her resume and she said that was such a special film for her. Not to put you on the spot, but what was that like working with Sophie and just a great cast and a very talented director as well. Great story. I love that movie so much.
No, I love that movie too. That's one of my favorites that I've done for sure. I love Sophie to death. We've still kept in touch for all these years. She's killing it right now. She's awesome. I love her to death. Really would like to work with her again, but go Sophie. And go Mean Dreams.
Oh yeah, go Mean. Even when it was released, I said more people should see this movie. And now, even years later, do people ever come up to you about that movie? Because that's a very unique film that I think is so under the radar. So
I know, yeah, I do. I love that movie to death. Well, it was just on Netflix recently in Canada, I think, and it was like top 5, I think. So if it can get the platform, people watch it, and it does resonate with people. So hopefully it gets its stride. But yeah, that's definitely one of my favorites that I've done. And how the movie turned out, and just the whole experience shooting it was so fun. Yeah, a lot of good memories with that one.
Josh, thanks again for your time. Really enjoyed your work in Armor.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Take care.